to Getting Personal with Daphne Bugler and Isabella Hobbs, your go-to podcast for all things emotional. Tune in weekly as we're joined by familiar faces from the worlds of sport, music, film, activism, and everywhere in between to talk about how emotions have shaped people's lives. Our guest this week is a Sussex-born singer-songwriter who quickly garnered momentum after uploading his tracks online. He spent his teenage years privately writing and recording songs in his bedroom while feeding his appetite for live performance at karaoke nights and friends' birthdays. Since he released his debut EP, Blessed or Cursed, our guest has received accolades from loads of amazing publishers, including The Official Charts, BBC Introducing and Wonderland. He's also performed live at the Great Escape, Sundown Festival and BBC Introducing Live, and has new music coming very soon. Having received 500,000 plays on his latest EP, These Darker Days, within just a few weeks, we completely agree with MTV, who have labelled our guest as a one to watch, as he continues to gain traction in the music industry. This week, we're getting personal with Freddie Long. To start off, would you be able to, for our listeners who may not know you or may not have heard of you before or may not have heard your music, can you fill them in on who you are and what you've I know you've got some music coming up, so what they can expect from you?
Yeah, so my name's Freddie Long. I am from a small town in small town in towards Brighton called Waldron. And I released my EP later this year called Blessed and Cursed, and I've got a new single on its way.
Cool. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So if we dive straight into that, quite often we like to start with the emotion of fear, just because, like Daphne said, it affects all of us no matter what industry we're in, what we do, or what age we are. So delving into fear, what does that mean to you in terms of your music, like putting music out there? Do you ever feel, really uncomfortable or really scared about making something that's really personal to you, something that you put like your entire soul into, and then having to release that to the world and just be on the receiving end of what anyone might think of their opinions? How does that feel?
Totally. I mean, fear is something that I can honestly say I experience fairly often, whether it be, the fear of putting music out and people not liking it, or just, putting my emotions out there and then people would get to judge it. I think for me, I started quite late into music. And I think when I first started putting my music out there, there's always that element of fear, like what are people going to think of me? What are people going to, judge of me and all this stuff? And it's quite hard to deal with at first because, you don't really know yourself for me anyway, I didn't really know, where I wanted to go with it. I was just exploring, I guess, my passion. Which is quite hard when you're fearing that someone's going to criticize it or whatever. But yeah, I think fear for me is it sounds quite strange, but I sort of like to live with a bit of fear, not in like I guess it drives me on a bit. I think without it I get quite complacent, which actually causes me quite a lot of stress, unsure of what's going on. And I think fear is something that I think has really helped me push through in certain times. But yeah, I experience it all the time, to be honest with you. Like, putting out a record or whatever, there's always that back of your mind. But as I say, it's something weirdly sort of drives me forward, and quite sort of I urge for that feeling, which I guess is quite strange. But
I'd be interested to know when you first released music, or you first kind of made the decision that you wanted to make music a career. And obviously you, as you said, you're kind of waiting to see, or you're fearful of what people are going to think of you. And you're kind of in some ways making yourself very vulnerable. Did you where did you kind of fear criticism coming from? Was it people that you had never met before, or critics and stuff like that? Or was it people who maybe knew you but didn't know that part of you, and you were kind of
showing another side of yourself?
It was definitely that side, like friends and stuff. I think, I've experienced it so much, not just personally, but I've also seen it, with other people. I think if you put something out there that's different, people around you are, for me anyway, a lot of people were there to support. But then after a couple of months, when it gets a little bit boring and they see you're uploading videos of you singing or whatever, it then becomes like, all right, mate, come on. Like we've seen you do that. Like we get it, whatever. And that's when it started to turn for me. I think when I first started putting music out, I was probably about 17 or whatever, and friends around me were definitely there to support me, sharing it, whatnot. And then after 6 months after that, it just got a little bit like, you could feel it getting a little bit like, come on dude, like we've seen you done that now, mate, we're a bit bored of it. Which I guess, and it was like, it was hard to deal with. I guess when your mates and stuff start, not going behind your back, but you can definitely feel that sort of like tension and stuff. It's a bit like, it's a shame because it's something that I want to do, and like I would never, try and not support a friend or whatever. But I guess, yeah, that's just what happened. But equally on the other side, there's friends and family that have been there, through thick and thin, who are always there to support. And so I think it's a mixture of both, but definitely starting off, there's initial fear of putting stuff out there to the world. It's very like, what am I doing? Especially for me, like I hadn't studied music or anything. It was just like, right, music is my passion. Let's put some stuff out there, see what the response is. And that is pretty scary. You've got no one to sort of tell you if it's wrong or right, if it's good or bad. But I think what I learned massively was just get it out. I think there's always going to be people who judge what you do. But I think if you're happy with it and, it allows you to create, open your emotions up, I think for me that was massive. And I think looking back, I sort of wouldn't have changed it really.
I think we have quite similar vibes in the sense that when Daphne and I started this podcast, it was the same sort of thing, like the same mixture of having that support from friends and family being like, yeah, this is amazing, go for it. And then for a lot of them, I just didn't want them to listen. I thought it was too scary knowing that people that I knew or saw every day were listening to my voice and but seeing me in a different kind of professional context. So yeah, that is so scary. It was probably easier knowing that maybe strangers would be listening.
Yeah, I'd prefer strangers than friends almost to be listening, or people that you kind of vaguely know but maybe have no idea that or are going to judge, that you think are going to judge you more. But
I guess it's so hard, because I'm still fairly new into music and stuff, and I don't know about you guys when you first started, where do you start? You sort of have to approach your friends to sort of get the initial support behind it. And I think that is what's daunting for I guess a lot of people when they start out, or whatever creative or whatever they're sort of doing. But I don't know about you guys. I think after a while, it's just like, okay, well, look, if you can have your own opinions, but we enjoy doing it. It's just like we're going to get on with it.
Yeah, definitely. It does come with time, I think, as well. And confidence in yourself that you kind of have to build. Which I think I'd love to know for you. Do you get? I don't know if you get any or have experienced any kind of negativity and stuff like that, but we've talked to some of our guests about social media and how for some people it can be such a positive tool, but then also it's very vulnerable and you are putting yourself out there, and that there is the possibility for negativity. And I guess with that kind of self-doubt and the worry of it, do you experience that in a sense when you put something up? Or you how do you build the confidence to overcome that?
I think I've definitely experienced messages from people hating on what I've done, and I think it's just common from a lot of people. But I think I started out by putting videos on Facebook when I was about 16 or whatnot, and so I first started doing that, and naturally I got both sides of criticism. And I think it's sort of from then it sort of it used to affect me a lot more than it does now. I think now I look at it, and to be honest with you, it's definitely cooled off a bit. I think because it's so openly, you can just, not that I would, but you see a lot of people now sort of not name shaming, but I think there's so much more of talk about it online where people it's just not cool. Why are you doing that to people you don't even know, basically. So yeah, I think it's I think social media is great, but also it can be bad. I think for me, as an artist, you always feel like you have to be active, and like you always feel like you need to be, posting stuff, like doing stuff. But then you've also got to focus on, the main thing, the music, creating that, which is obviously quite important. So, yeah, that's definitely a challenge as an artist, like getting the balance between the two and not feeling like it's a pressure, which it does, to be fair. But yeah, but on the flip side, I think social media has a great positive that it can, help target and speak to new audiences so much easier than back in the day. For me, it's been a massive part of my journey, targeting people. Well, I guess sort of growing a fan base in completely different areas like Germany and stuff. It's just like, I'd never be able to do that before. So yeah, I think both sides, but yeah, it definitely is daunting, I guess, social media. But at the same time, I think it is quite exciting opportunities.
Looking at your songwriting or your music in general, when you kind of sit down and you want to make some music, what inspires you to do that? Is there a particular emotion maybe that inspires you more than others, or what do you tend to draw upon?
So it's quite hard because like I don't try and think about it too much. Like I have done that previously and it just doesn't really work. Like I think I tend to draw a lot of most of my music are quite deep emotional sort of subjects, and I guess that comes within growing up. I used to be really sort of into that sort of music, not like, obviously array of other stuff, but also like quite sort of like you listen to it and you feel a certain emotion, and normally it's quite a sad emotion actually, which again I don't know why, but it's always seemed to draw me to that. So when starting a song, I like to sort of have some ideas in mind. So it might just be a phrase or a title that I've come across, and then that sort of triggers an emotion, which then sort of I guess builds into a story. But yeah, a lot of the songs are, what's weird for me, someone asked me this the other day, and it was like, because my latest single coming out deals with a lot of like anxiety and like self-doubt and stuff, which I'm open to say that I do deal with. And what I find hard to understand is why. Like I don't really know why I deal with it. I've not had a moment in my life where it's been traumatizing or anything like that, and I think I struggle to deal with why I feel like that. And yeah, I guess it's just like, so I spoke to someone the other day about it, and they were saying they're exactly the same. And I feel like sometimes you feel like you need to have a reason why you don't feel, why you feel anxious or something. But for me, it's not been that way. And yeah, I just don't really understand why. But I guess that's just society and just going through different stages of your life.
When you have these songs that have so many specific emotions tied to them, like you said, like your new single is very heavily tied to anxiety, and then you've got other songs which play on more about sadness, and they're just connected so deeply to each song. When you perform them live or when you just sing them or whatever, does that experience stay the same each time? Is every time you perform a particular song, you're drawn back into that emotion that you had when you were first writing it, or does it evolve over time and eventually it won't quite be the same?
I think, no, definitely. I mean, every time you perform it, it sort of triggers, I guess, the same emotions to when you first write it. I think that's for me something that I've always liked about music. I'd find a song when I was younger and I'd just listen to it for like 10 times a day, just on repeat, just because I'm attached to a certain part. Not saying that I am with my music, but I guess like performing it becomes that sort of, I don't know, like tapping into an emotion, like, whereas, normally day to day, I guess, it's something that I wouldn't be able to necessarily let out, but performing the song, on stage or whatever, you're able to zone back into that moment and that feeling. So definitely.
So I'd be interested to know from you, as a guy, as a man. Obviously there's been a lot of talk recently about kind of masculinity and being open about your emotions as a man, and what kind of comes with that, and how it can be quite difficult for men to be open and more vulnerable about emotional subjects, I think, then it might be for us to maybe have a talk about it. So have you found that you've had a space in your life where you've been able to be emotional and you've been able to be vulnerable? Or do you think that's been more difficult, or that maybe you've had to grow to learn or teach yourself how to process emotions?
It's definitely been difficult. I think now I feel comfortable speaking to friends or, whoever around me. But no, definitely growing up through school, I think school's a place for me, looking back. There's nothing that, people talk to you about dealing with emotions, about, dealing with anything like that. And growing up, you sort of feel like, not that you can't, but I guess, like you say, there's this weird sort of, weird concept that, males have to be all right the whole time, and it's, not okay to be upset. And I think, dealing with sports and stuff through school, it's very much like who can, I don't know, kick the furthest in football, who can whatever, and it's always a competition. I think that's, maybe why. But yeah, growing up and my teens and stuff, I think, it's definitely hard. I did a campaign for Calm, the charity around men's mental health, and the statistics are just awful. It's like 79 males a week in the UK under the age of 40 are committing suicide, which is just, really, really dreadful. So there's definitely not been enough done, in my opinion. I feel like it needs to be focused more, the younger generation coming through, because as I said, like now, I guess I feel comfortable speaking to people because, I guess what I've experienced or whatever, but still sort of the younger generation, I don't know if they had, I don't know if schools doing, much on this. I don't know. I just think it's a topic that, it means a lot to me. I've had friends who have, gone through and up okay and stuff, but there's definitely a lot of it still out there, and it's something that I feel like needs to be addressed a bit more.
If we could now move on to the subject of love, I would really love to talk about your single White Water, which for our listeners was released earlier this year, wasn't it? Was it just before lockdown?
Yes.
Great timing. Yeah. But the impression I got from White Water, loved it. It's what I thought was, it was about kind of having someone be your rock. So I was thinking about like the different types of love, because it's not only just romantic love. There's platonic love, there's a friendship love, there's a family love, and having someone to be that support and to be someone to be like truly open and honest with, even if it's just one person, it might be many people. But I wanted to hear more about your inspiration for White Water, and has it come from people or a person that you have like this very trustworthy, open relationship with, or is it more like a feeling that you have connected with?
Well, firstly, thanks. That's cool that you liked it. So White Water, exactly that is about, for me, it was about people around me that sort of supported me, and a lot of it was a realization point for me. Like I went through school, and I went to uni as well, and throughout that time I sort of wasn't the best behaved. I was going a bit crazy. I wasn't really studying. I was doing everything I shouldn't have done, really. And I always had support from people, like my family, close friends, all around me, even though stuff that I may have done. And White Water for me was sort of understanding that and realizing it. So the song talks about a person who is your rock, who is there for you, understands obviously everything you're going through, encourages you, but then there's a different side of myself that's dragging me to different things. So it's like realizing, well, actually it wasn't realizing, because the next single was about that. Fade was all about understanding, you know, the wrongs that you've done, but Whitewater was the temptations coming in from different angles, whether it be going out to party, whether it be doing something that I shouldn't have done. It was yeah, sort of understanding that, acknowledging it, and just reflecting on it, I guess.
If we touch a bit on happiness, we move into our favorite emotion. So one thing we do with all of our guests that we do each week is we ask them, just because I think right now, especially when times are a bit tougher and there's not loads that, you know, we can all be doing outside of our homes and stuff like that. We talk about this idea of like bubbles of happiness, basically. So like small things in your life or like in your day to day that might maybe boost your mood a bit and make you feel a bit better. So that could be anything from like, you know, we always give the example of like a really good cup of coffee, or like, you know,
every week it's a really good cup of coffee.
I don't even drink coffee, but
yeah, what for me in the morning?
Yeah, what else
cup
to
of
you?
Coffee. But I think so I mean, I love hanging out with friends. You know, I think friends, whether it be obviously lockdowns being a bit trickier, but you know, even just chatting with someone on FaceTime for 5-10 minutes, I think it definitely breaks up my day. And without realizing it, coming off a call, it's like, oh, that was so, you know, gives me another lease of life throughout that day, which is nice. I'm a proper foodie. I love food. So that's definitely something that makes me happy. Pizza is my go-to. And I've been watching some YouTube shows throughout lockdown about pizza, which has been quite sad, which has killed time. But again, it breaks my day up, and it's actually, it does make me happy watching pizza shows, which is strange, but yeah.
I love that. I've been watching, you know, like the cake baking competitions, but not like the Bake Off, but like the ones that like making those super realistic cakes.
What, are these cake or are they something else? Yeah,
is it a cake or is it your hand or something?
They're on they're huge on TikTok right now. Some of them are so good.
It's like scrolling through Facebook and then all these like random videos pop up and you just end up, it's like, oh, it's like 3 hours later.
Yeah, they do kill time dangerously, but they are quite enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned just like FaceTiming people, because it made me think of oh my gosh, I loved your green screen that you've bought. Your can you just tell us about your virtual European tour? Because I cracked up at when you like came into Sweden and there's just like some random street behind you. You just explain for anyone who doesn't have the context what was happening.
So yeah, I think it was like a week or two into proper lockdown over here in the UK. So I was pretty bored. And I had this new EP that came out, so obviously I wanted to try and do it. Well, we had plans to do shows across Europe, but they all got pulled. So I was just searching up on YouTube how to do green screens, and I found this tutorial on sort of how you go about it. So I bought myself a green sheet from Amazon for like £5, I think, and then set it up in my room and just went round 5 countries throughout Europe and did 2 songs in each, and then tried to do a little activity. So in Paris I drew the Eiffel Tower blindfolded. I think in the UK I was quarantined with my parents, and my dad built this like little flicky rugby game for us, and we were playing a game of that, so you had to try and flick it over the post, which was quite jokes. But yeah, it was just a way to kill time, and it was very fun to do as well.
Well, I really urge everyone to go onto YouTube and watch it. That could be someone's bubble of happiness for today.
Yeah.
So we touched upon earlier how you said you kind of got into music when you were 16, 17, however old. What was music for you before then? What kind of made that switch that you decided to actually start pursuing it? Was it just like the love that you had for music and performing, or was there a specific moment that you realized, I want to be serious about this, or semi-serious?
I mean, it was never exactly like when I first started it was never sort of a serious thing. It was more just like, I've always loved music, let's try this out. I mean, I remember sort of like I've always been super into music itself, like since young, like buying CDs when they came out, buying albums and stuff, and just listening to them non-stop and stuff. So, and you know, my family, they're not musical themselves in terms of instruments, but they're super into music. So growing up, there was a lot of like Jamiroquai playing around the house, a lot of like the Verve and stuff. So yeah, super sort of musical family as well, I guess, in terms of they're super into music. So yeah, when I was about 16 or 17, you know, school, it wasn't really for me, like in terms of education. Obviously got to do it and stuff, and I guess it was just finding something that killed the time a bit when I was home and sort of, you know, breaking up the day. And yeah, so I just bought a guitar, started to learn some chords from YouTube, and then just sort of played around with some covers, and then decided to upload them to Facebook. That was the popping social media channel at the time. And yeah, just started to upload them to them, and gradually, you know, over months or whatever it was, just did more and more, and then got a bit of traction, and then it sort of led me on to writing my own music, which then led me to think actually I could start writing songs and putting them out there and see what people think. So yeah, it was quite a different journey to maybe some, but I guess that's the beauty of YouTube. You can just learn guitar off YouTube pretty much, and then just played around with the chords that I learned to write my own songs.
You mentioned how a lot of your songs touch on sadness or like sad emotions. I'd love to know kind of what is that the main way you kind of process or deal with sadness, do you think? Or when things happen in your life that are a bit, you know, get you down, or even if it's not something's happened but you're just feeling a bit down, how do you process and how do you bring yourself back up from that?
I find dealing with emotions quite hard myself. Like, I guess not hard, but I'm either like really happy or like really sad. I find it hard sometimes to find a balance, and a lot of it comes down to myself and pressure that I put on myself. And I guess, you know, doing music and writing songs and, you know, putting emotions on the line, I guess naturally you are dealing with quite a lot of your inside emotions that normally you wouldn't sort of deal with or even speak about. So yeah, personally, it's a fine line, you know. I think it's something that I'm trying to understand a bit better, like trying to find a middle ground and, you know, not expecting everything to be amazing or whatever, because it's just unrealistic. But yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. But I think, you know, just understanding that for me has been a massive thing to sort of know that, you know, everyone goes through the ups and downs, really.
Yeah, like you said, those highs and lows is something that I think a lot of us can relate to, and especially in like the year that it's been very intense, like with lockdown and everything. And obviously as a musician, this has been very limiting for you. Like you haven't been able to tour or play live or like do the festival circuit or anything like that, having to kind of be on lockdown. How has that been for you in terms of, I don't know, like if we go into anger, like how have you dealt with this? Like, has it made you just really frustrated and angry, or is it more kind of the other side and it's just like, it's just a bit gutting?
No, definitely frustration does come in. I wouldn't say so much anger. I think it's more just like limitations of what you can do during lockdown. You know, there's only so much you can do. And I think for me, that was quite annoying. I guess it was annoying, and like there was a frustration, and that would come out on myself. Like, you know, I'd be go down to dinner or whatnot, and I'd be sort of quite frustrated. I'd be like, like, what can I do? Like, I can't do anything. There's always something to do, but do you know what I mean? It's just like there's definitely limitations there, and I think lockdown was really tough because there was a lot of pressure to write music. You know, speaking to people at the time, it's like, this is the most amazing time because the most amazing songs are going to come out of lockdown. There's going to be so much great art, so much great creative process. This is going to be so great. And it's just like, there no doubt will. Like, there's 100% people that are going to release some amazing stuff in whatever they do. But that also created quite a lot of pressure, sitting down and being like, right, okay, whereas normally you can go about your day and your week, and then you've got certain days to do whatnot. It's just now you sit there, it's like there's no real structure, there's no real sort of wake up, do that. It's especially when it was super strict and you couldn't really go out at all, that was really hard to deal with. But yeah, I think play things like Zoom, like what we're on now. I mean, surprising, like what people managed to get done, and I guess it's just having that social interaction with people was good, and I guess people are starting to adapt to it. But yeah, I hope it doesn't stay this forever, because I'm not a massive fan.
No, I know there's just so much pressure. I think we all felt it, and so many people we've talked to, that pressure to suddenly utilize the time you've been given to be creative or to produce something. Like, I know Taylor Swift literally wrote, recorded, released an entire album during lockdown, which was fantastic.
Amazing.
Well done, her.
Amazing.
It's so good. And you did a cover of it. You did the Body There.
The Exile.
Yeah, that was lovely. That was really lovely.
It's a great album, actually. Yeah, it's an awesome album.
It is. And that was amazing of her. But similarly, when we spoke to Len and Stella a few weeks ago, she said how during lockdown and during COVID, mentally, she wasn't in the right frame of mind to put something out there into the world that she was super in love with. It just wasn't the time to be making music or writing music. So it's really everyone is different. And I know that we wouldn't have started this podcast without lockdown, because being on different continents, we were kind of like, oh, well, it can't be done. We'll just wait for a few years and see if we're both in the same country. But like you said, using Zoom, using different thought paths, there is a lot that we can achieve, but we don't have to achieve.
Yeah,
it's just too much pressure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's good to understand, even now it's unsure what's going to happen with another lockdown or whatnot. And I think it's good to understand that people are different, and also what people have got in place. Like you said, I think if you're wanting to release music or whatever you're looking to do, and you're not in that right frame of mind, it's probably best just to hold off and just wait until you are, because otherwise you might look back and you might sort of regret it a bit.
Yeah, it's also been such a emotionally heavy time period, I think, not just in terms of lockdown, but there's just been so much kind of change, and we've all, I think, had to take so much time for reflection, that I think maybe it's not just been the most creative period. I think, I don't know if you found that as well. Yeah,
definitely, 100%. I think I guess it is a nice time just to not have to create, I guess, not have to use your brain that much, just spend time with yourself and whoever you're with, and sort of enjoy the moments, because it's quite rare that we're going to have that again, really, isn't it? 4 or 5 months, however long it was, just not really having too much structure to the day. And like you say, it definitely was a moment where, as I said, I was down actually in my family home with my 2 sisters. One lives in London, one was at uni, so the 5 of us never really spent time all together, so that in lockdown was super nice. To spend that time with the family was something, I guess was super different, super nice, and something that was good.
So lastly, Freddie, I guess what we want to ask you, moving on from COVID, lockdown, all of that, what do you want 2021 to bring you? Do you have any goals or specific wishes that maybe this was not the year for them? What do you want to do next year?
If COVID's gone, we'll just assume it's gone.
Yeah, let's just assume everything is fine.
Well, there's quite a lot of stuff, I guess, just day-to-day stuff that I'm quite looking forward to. Just going to the pub with a large group and 6 would be quite nice at the moment. But in terms of next year, something that I really did miss this year was live shows. Before lockdown, we released the EP and we were planning to go around Europe, as I mentioned, and that didn't manage to go ahead. So which was really really sad and quite annoying and sort of like really frustrating. So I think next year for me, you know, I really hope by next year, if the virus is gone, we can get out, play some shows, live music gets back in action, because there's a lot of people, even my mates and stuff, who are suffering, you know, whether it be a session player, live session player or whatnot. The music industry seems to be, you know, suffering a bit on that side. So it'd be great if we could get out and start playing some shows.
I really hope that in 2021 people are more aware of how important like music and the arts are, because like
definitely
nobody would have lasted lockdown without music, without television, movies, art, whatever. So fingers crossed everyone wakes up for 2021.
Let's hope so.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining us today, Freddie. It's been a great chat.
Thank you guys. It was great to chat.
We've loved this. Thank you so much for taking the time, and also for being like so willing to be open with us. We really appreciate it. And I think it's so important for people to hear. So thank you.
Good.
And when is your new single out?
So it comes out on the 23rd of October, which is a couple of weeks from now. So yeah, please go and stream it, all streaming platforms.
Thanks for listening to Getting Personal. Don't forget you can like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And give us a review and a rating. It helps other listeners find us in the charts. We'll see you next time.